One of the most talked about comic book movies of the last 5 years is finally here. DC's Flash, the first live action adaptation of one of the best DC characters of all time. The discussion around it has been negative, positive, hype, toxic, for all the right and wrong reasons. James Gunn said it's one of the best comic book movies he's ever seen. Tom Cruise came out and co-signed it. Stephen King himself said it's the greatest comic book movie ever. But is all that hype true? I'm going to give you that answer when I break down the good and the bad. I'm going to start with the premise. Worlds collide when the Flash uses his superpowers to travel back to change past events. However, when his attempt to save his family inadvertently alters the future, he becomes trapped in a reality in which General Zod has returned, threatening destruction. With no other superheroes to turn to, the Flash looks to coax a very different Batman out of retirement and rescue a prisoned Kryptonian, albeit not the one he's looking for. This movie is carried by its characters, and the character that people were looking forward to the most, and they put in all the ad campaign, was Michael Keaton's return as the Batman, the version of the character he played in 1989, and some people consider the best Batman of all time. And I gotta say, a lot of people who like to return to big roles after a long time of not playing them have not felt the same. They kind of felt like the actors just being themselves, but saying the words. But I gotta say, Michael Keaton was absolutely phenomenal. He is all the hype. He is what you are looking for when you get excited to see him. He feels like how that character felt in '89, but brought to present day. This is that same character, just older, a lot more wiser, and just with a lot more trauma. And Michael Keaton comes with the fun. He's so great, and he makes his Batman so fun, so badass, such cool tech, to the point where I was like, I wouldn't mind him continue being Batman moving forward. And it made the 18-year-old side of me feel really, really happy about it. He even has great action sequences, a couple of them in this movie that almost rivaled the warehouse scene in Batman versus Superman. It was that good. Sasha Cale as Kara Zor-El / Supergirl / Superwoman was fantastic in the role. She had a very limited screen time, but the screen presence that she has when she's there is fantastic. Not only she's hot as hell, but she just commands the screen, and she does a really great job of showing the grittier side of Supergirl, the version of the character from the comics. We have had the Supergirl show for a while, and she's basically been Clark Kent, but as a girl in that show. And in the comics, Supergirl is a little bit not as happy-go-lucky. She's a little bit more gritty, willing to kill. And we see that side here as she's displaced in this multiverse that's going on. And she does a great job in the limited time she is with the action sequences, the emotional parts. And she's just somebody that looks like you want to root for and want to defend you because she's such a badass. I just want to see her more down the line in other films. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding Ezra Miller, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about their performance. And I think that they did a phenomenal job in this film. This movie is carried on their back, and how good of a Barry Allen they are in this film. This is easily their best performance as this character, and one of the best performances in a comic book film, I think, ever. They did a great job of doing this very emotional character. They also have to portray another version of themselves, a younger version of themselves, and they feel so distinctly different. There was no point in the movie where I was confused which one was which. And that dynamic really set off how great and emotional this film would be, and it's on the back of Ezra Miller to do it. And I think he knocked it out of the park. And the movie is way funnier than I expected it to be. This is an action comedy, and there's so many jokes that land. Not everything lands, but most of the jokes land, and it's a range of slapstick humor, DC-related jokes, just really genuine, funny moments between characters that doesn't feel like skits. It just comes about between the conversation and the moments and the audacity or ridiculousness of the situation. They did a really great job of writing this, and the comedic timing between all the characters was really, really great. But the movie is not all laughs. There's a very emotional story here about letting go, acceptance, finding oneself and their identity, and it's centered around the two Barrys. They sneaked a Flash origin story in this movie since we didn't get it before because of the way the DCU was set up, while also using that to show the growth of the current Barry. And I thought that was ingenious. That dynamic and that storytelling was really compelling. And where it led to towards the third act and the climax almost brought tears to my eye. Obviously, we know from the trailers Barry goes to save his mom, and that changes everything and how everything happens, and there's no metahumans, and those decisions that they make or Barry makes, and then how the younger Barry has to deal with it, I thought was really well written and really, really fun and also heartbreaking. And with this being a multiverse story, there's a lot of cameos and things that happen in this film that celebrate the world of cinema DC and television shows that was not even hinted in the trailer. And I hope going into this movie, you are not spoiled at all because it's really, really cool moments. And speaking of cool moments, action sequences are here. Other than Michael Keaton's Batman almost BVS warehouse sequence are really, really good, especially the opening one that felt like the early 2000s Justice League Unlimited films. I think that they did a great job of capturing what DC action should be and what it should look like for the most part. And I really was enamored by everything that they did here. Andy Muschietti, I'm probably not saying his name correctly, did a great job not only directing the action sequences, but the emotional parts and the comedy bits. He did a fantastic job. He has upgraded completely from doing It Chapter 1 and 2. And I just think he just did a banging job overall. The VFX and CGI in this film is so weird because there's some really beautiful looking moments in this film with VFX and CGI, but a lot of the times it does not look that great. It doesn't look terrible, but it very noticeably either rubbery or fake, and it can take you out of certain scenes that's supposed to be epic, emotional, or just really cool because you're like, that doesn't look super real, but I kind of like in the movie right now because this is really compelling, but also I still notice it. So you're kind of juggling two things, which you shouldn't be doing when you're watching a movie. And this is very, very apparent in the third act of the film, where it becomes a complete CGI fest. You can tell that they're not really wherever they are, and it really makes a lot of action feel a little bit weightless and hurts some of the emotional moments that happens because there's some really high emotional and epic world stakes that happens in that third act. But because of the use and maybe the artistic choice, I think it was an artistic choice that they did that I don't think panned out. It really hurts the film overall, especially in the third act, because it's sprinkled throughout the first two acts. It's not something that's really like, oh man, this is weird. But since the third act is almost a bunch of CGI, it was really, really apparent at that point. And even though the movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, it felt like it wasn't long enough. The pacing of the film is breakneck. Just go, with a lot of different story beats that do get conclusion here and there, but I just felt like a lot of it didn't get to breathe. And there's certain characters that I wanted more of and a little bit more screen time. And like Michael Shannon as Zod his performance and what they did with the character was nowhere as good as what they did with him in Man of Steel, which was very disappointing because I think he's one of the best comic book villains that we've had. And just all that stuff with the Kryptonians just wasn't as great as it should have been. There's certain sequences where I felt like they cut it short for time, and I wish they didn't, because this could have elevated the movie to maybe like all-time classic. What James Gunn and Stephen King and Tom Cruise were saying, it could have been one of the greatest comic book movies of all time if they gave it the time to breathe and do what it needs to do to really engross you in all of the parts of the film where they end up tying together at the end. Now let's get into my verdict. So while I believe this is a great superhero film, but flawed by some really bad technical things with the CGI and VFX, I think the performances, the humor, the action set pieces, and the love for DC and the love for Barry Allen Flash, because this is still a Flash movie, even with all the things around it with the multiverse, it still focuses on him. And a lot of the movie is just that character and that character's journey. I think that they did a great job with making me feel really engrossed. I had a big smile on my face throughout the movie. I was never bored despite the flaws that were in the film. And I really, really, really liked this movie a lot. I think they did a great job of executing this film under the circumstances that we know that this film was going under with all the reshoots and everything. And we got a really great product. It could have been amazing if the VFX and the CGI was done better or was a better, more practical choices were done. But overall, I don't think they harmed the film enough where it's not enjoyable. So it's not the best comic book movie ever, like some people were saying, but it is another great entry in comic book films because of the emotional core. So with that said, I'm going to give The Flash a B. So what do you think? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you rate The Flash if you've seen it? And if you have not seen it yet, because I know my review is coming out before the film comes out, let me know if my reviews push you towards seeing it. I know there was a lot of skepticism on the film because of all these rumors, and some people don't want to see it because of Ezra Miller, which is understandable. But let me know how you feel about the contents of my review. Like the video if you like my review, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell to be notified of my reviews, reactions, live discussions, and much, much more. And you can catch more of my content right now.